What do you do when your employees stop caring and you're the last to know? Kellan Zade asked himself as he stared through the windshield of his rental car, parked half a block away from his own fast food restaurant. He'd bought the 11-location burger chain 6 years ago from a retiring couple who'd built it from nothing. At first, he'd been proud to keep the name, proud to keep most of the original staff, and proud that it still felt like a family business. But lately, something had changed. Customer reviews had dipped. A few complaints about rude service. One location even had a health inspector's warning that got buried under excuses from the district manager. Kellan wasn't the kind of boss to sit in a high-rise and ask for filtered reports. He wanted truth, and the only way to get it was to see it for himself. He picked the 8th location, a mid-size spot in a strip mall outside of Dayton. The manager, a woman named Trish, had been with the company for 3 years. Kellan had never met her. Turnover was high in that area, and he'd approved her hire through HR. He made sure his disguise was tight dyed brown hair, fake glasses, a small scar drawn on his cheek with makeup, and a name, Kyle. He even practiced a light southern drawl to throw them off. Corporate had quietly arranged for Kyle to be hired as a late shift trainee. No one at this location had ever seen the CEO in person. They thought of the company as a small franchise under a parent corporation, which helped. He walked in 15 minutes before his shift. The place smelled like grease and stale soda. A kid no older than 19 stood behind the counter, tapping his phone. "Hey," Kellan said. "Kyle, starting today." The kid looked up. "Oh yeah, Trish'll be out in a sec, you can wait." Kellan nodded and stepped aside. A few customers waited in line, but no one seemed to rush. A mother with a toddler in her arms sighed loudly. The kid behind the counter didn't even blink. A woman in her 40s came out from the back, tying her apron around her waist. "Kyle, right." "You're late, I'm early." "You're not behind the counter, are you?" she shot back. Kellan kept his cool. "No, ma'am," she looked him over. "Whatever, stick with Frankie, he'll show you the ropes." Frankie turned out to be the cook, late 20s, quiet, focused. He didn't say much, just nodded and handed Kellan a pair of gloves. "You ever done this before?" Frankie asked. Kellan gave a little shrug. "Not really," Frankie sighed. "Okay, don't touch the fryer yet, just prep. Lettuce, tomato, buns." That's it. Trish paced back and forth between the front and kitchen, barking orders without looking anyone in the eye. She didn't smile, didn't thank anyone. When the evening rush hit, she vanished into the office. Kellan watched Frankie work. The guy was fast, clean, and serious about the food. When a ticket came in with an allergy note, "No cheese, dairy allergy," Frankie double-checked the grill, wiped down the spatula, and reached for a clean surface. Then a voice snapped from behind. "Frankie, stop wasting time. Just make the damn burger." Frankie turned. "They said dairy allergy." "I don't care," Trish said. "You think they're gonna sue us over a slice of cheese? They can't prove anything. We're behind. Move." Frankie stared at her. "What if it's serious? What if it's a kid?" Trish stepped closer. "I said move. Don't argue with me in front of a trainee." Kellan felt his jaw clench. He stepped back, pretending to organize the prep station, but his ears burned. Frankie looked down, then reluctantly built the burger on the same surface as the others. Kellan's stomach twisted. Later in the back room, he found Frankie wiping down trays. "Hey man, about earlier." Frankie didn't look up. "It's not the first time, I don't like it either, but she's the boss." "You ever report it?" Frankie gave a half laugh. "To who?" "District guys, her cousin." Kellan froze. "Seriously?" Frankie nodded. "Yeah. He comes in every few weeks, signs off on everything, takes her to lunch. Nothing ever changes." A customer came to the counter asking about a milk-free option for their kid. The cashier, same kid from earlier, rolled his eyes and said, "We don't do that kind of thing here." Kellan watched the mother leave, shaking her head. He went back to the prep line, his hands shaking. This was his company. His name was on the payroll. And someone almost got served a burger that could have sent them to the hospital because it was faster. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, he showed up early. Frankie was already there, stocking buns. "You're back," Frankie said, surprised. "Yeah, I want to learn everything," Kellan said. "And I want to do it the right way." Kellan walked into the restaurant just before the doors unlocked for the late morning shift. The lights were already on, and the fryers hummed with heat. Paper cups were stacked, but the dining area smelled faintly of old mop water and the floor hadn't been swept under the tables. He noticed dried ketchup on one of the seat cushions. Frankie was at the prep station again, moving with quiet precision. He glanced over when Kellan entered, then went back to slicing onions. "You're here early," he said. "Figured I'd beat the lunch rush," Kellan replied, tying on an apron. Frankie didn't ask questions. He just slid a box of tomatoes across the counter. "Wash these, slice half-inch rounds." "We're low." A few minutes later, the front door opened and two more employees walked in. One was a tall girl in a faded hoodie, earbuds still in as she clocked in with a swipe of her card. The other was a shorter guy, maybe mid-30s, with a limp in his right leg. He moved slowly, favoring one side. "Hey, Lauren." "Hey, Theo," Frankie said. Lauren nodded without removing her earbuds. Theo gave a tired wave. Kellan watched Theo move behind the counter and start wiping down the register area without being asked. His movements were methodical, but every step seemed to cost him something. "You okay?" Kellan asked. Theo gave a dry chuckle. "Oh, this old injury doesn't stop me, just slows me down." Frankie tapped the prep counter. "He's still faster than half the weekend crew." Kellan filed that away. Theo was already sweating, even though the A/C was running. At 11:30, the manager arrived. Trish came through the back door with a large iced coffee in hand and sunglasses still on. She didn't acknowledge anyone until she stepped into the kitchen. "Why's nobody started the chicken station?" she asked. Frankie looked up. "Because we're short 2 staff. Chicken's second priority today." Trish sipped her drink. "That's not your call." "It's not your body either," Frankie replied, not raising his voice. "Excuse me." Trish stopped mid-sip. Kellan wiped his hands and turned away, pretending to check the lettuce shelf. He could feel the tension but didn't jump in. Trish didn't say anything else. She just walked into the office and closed the door. The first customer came in 10 minutes later, and the trickle turned into a steady stream by noon. Kellan stayed on prep, but he kept glancing toward the register. Theo moved slower than the rest, but he knew the menu inside out. He upsold without sounding robotic, and when a customer asked if the veggie burger could be made gluten-free, he offered to check with the kitchen instead of brushing it off. Kellan leaned toward Frankie. "Why isn't he running the shift?" Frankie kept his eyes on the grill. "He used to." Before Trish took over. Kellan didn't press. He just watched as Theo helped a woman who spoke halting English, guiding her through the menu with patience. An hour later, a kid barely 16 maybe came in wearing a wrinkled uniform shirt and no hat. He clocked in, then headed straight for the office. Kellan noticed he didn't wash his hands or greet anyone. "Who's that?" he asked. "Damon, Trish's nephew." Kellan saw Lauren roll her eyes. She had finally taken out one earbud. Damon emerged from the back with a soda in his hand and sat down at a booth near the soda machine. "Is he on break already?" Kellan asked. "No, he just does that," Lauren said. "He'll get up when she tells him to." 15 minutes passed. The line reached the door. Damon stayed seated, tapping on his phone. Theo turned around. "Lauren, I need someone to bag." Lauren looked over her shoulder. "Don't ask me, ask the prince." Theo wiped his forehead and walked over to Damon. "Hey, we need help up here, come on." Damon didn't look up. "Nah. I'm good." Theo's voice stayed level. "You're on the clock, we're slammed." The boy finally looked up. "You can't tell me what to do, my aunt's the manager." Kellan dropped the lettuce he was holding. Frankie's hand froze mid-motion. Theo stared at Damon. "Then maybe she can explain what working a shift means." At that moment, Trish stepped out. "What's going on?" Theo turned to her. "Your nephew's been sitting for 20 minutes while the line's out the door." Trish's expression didn't change. "He's on his break. He clocked in 30 minutes ago, which means he's entitled to a 10-minute rest." He hasn't worked 10 minutes yet. Are you seriously arguing with me over policy? Trish said, her voice low but sharp. Kellan stepped in. Theo's right. We're drowning out here. Trish turned to him. You don't get to weigh in, you're a trainee. Kellan didn't respond. He just stepped back and picked up a tray. 2 hours later, the kitchen was a mess. The front counter was sticky, the trash bins were full, and Damon had done exactly one task: refill the ice machine. Trish had spent most of the shift in the office. When she did come out, it was to correct Lauren's headset volume or to complain about the napkin count being off. When the rush finally died down around 2:30, Theo leaned against the counter. His left leg was trembling. Kellan walked up to him. You need a break? Theo gave a resigned laugh. Not scheduled for one for another hour. Take 5, I'll cover. Theo looked at him. You sure? Kellan nodded. Yeah. Theo limped to the back and Lauren tossed her headset on the counter. I swear if that kid Damon gets promoted before me, I'm walking. Kellan didn't say anything. She looked at him. You've been quiet. What do you think of this place so far? He hesitated. I think some people are better than the job deserves. Lauren folded napkins. You're not wrong, but no one listens. HR won't touch Trish. She's protected. I tried reporting her last year after she told a girl to lose weight if she wanted to be on register. Kellan's head snapped toward her. She said that? Yeah, girl cried in the freezer, quit the next day. He clenched his jaw. Frankie called out from the back, Kyle, can you grab more pickles from the walk-in? Kellan nodded and headed through the kitchen. The walk-in fridge was cramped and poorly lit. He found the pickle tub and hoisted it out, but as he turned, he heard a soft voice from behind the shelf. I swear if I have to clean up after that idiot again, I'm gonna lose it. It was Damon. You don't have to, just ignore him, Trish. Can't you just write him up or something? I'm not writing up my own nephew. He's not the problem. That guy Theo is. Always limping around, acting like he's some hero. He's one bad shift from breaking down. Kellan froze. You should have fired him already, Damon said. HR won't approve it unless he messes up. Believe me, I've tried. Kellan walked out of the fridge without saying a word. His hands were shaking. He found Frankie near the prep sink. Can you take over for 10 minutes? Frankie nodded. Kellan walked to the office. He didn't knock. Trish looked up, startled. What are you doing? Kellan pulled off his apron, then reached into his back pocket and took out a folded ID badge. She blinked. I'm Kellan Zade, CEO. She didn't move. I've been working this shift undercover. I've heard everything. I've seen everything. You're done here. She stared at him, mouth open. You treated employees like trash. You ignored safety protocols. You allowed your nephew to ignore his job while berating people who actually care. And you mocked a man for having a physical condition he works through every day. He stepped aside. Leave now. But now she stood slowly, red creeping up her neck. Damon came out of the back, eyes wide. You too, Kellan said. Clock out and go. They both hesitated. Kellan didn't raise his voice. If either of you stay, I'll call the police for trespassing. Neither said another word. They left through the back door. Kellan turned to Frankie, who had stepped forward without saying anything. Get everyone in the back. 10 minutes. Paid break. I'll explain everything. Frankie nodded once and disappeared into the kitchen. Kellan looked around the dining area. The floor was still dirty, the tables still sticky. But for the first time that day, the place felt like it could breathe. The back office felt colder once Trish and Damon were gone. The overhead fan spun lazily, humming against the silence. Kellan stood beside the desk, arms crossed, waiting as the remaining team filed in one by one. Lauren leaned against the doorframe, still holding her headset. Theo limped in last, his brow furrowed, clearly unsure what was happening. Frankie leaned against the prep sink, arms at his sides. Kellan looked at each of them. These were the ones who stayed, the ones who didn't hide or make excuses. I owe you an explanation, Kellan said. My name isn't Kyle. I'm Kellan Zade. I own this company. No gasps, no wide eyes, just stunned stillness. Lauren blinked first. You're joking. I'm not. Theo rubbed his lower back. You worked a whole shift with us. I needed to see the truth myself, not a report, not filtered through anyone else. I saw it. Frankie didn't speak, but his shoulders shifted slightly, like a weight had just moved. Kellan stepped away from the desk. What I saw was a team doing their best under leadership that didn't care. I watched someone ignore a food allergy warning. I watched a man get mocked behind his back for having a limp. I watched a kid sit through an entire rush while the rest of you pulled twice your weight. Theo's mouth tightened, but he said nothing. No one should have to work like that, Kellan continued. That stops today, Lauren crossed her arms. She's really gone. Yes, and she's not coming back, neither is her nephew. Frankie let out a slow breath. I can't fix everything all at once, Kellan admitted. But I can start by asking the people who have been holding this place together what they need. Silence again. Theo shifted his weight. She cut hours every week, said we didn't justify the labor cost, but we were always short, always. Kellan nodded once. That changes. Starting now, you'll have full staffing based on actual traffic patterns, not spreadsheets. I'll fly in a temporary manager to cover the next week while we find someone permanent, and this time, it won't be someone's cousin. Lauren tilted her head, skeptical. And after that? You go back to headquarters and we never see you again. No, Kellan said. I'm staying in town. I'll rotate through each store unannounced. No more middlemen, no more filters. Frankie finally spoke. Then you should know something else. There's mold in the soda line. We've reported it twice. Nothing happened. Kellan turned to him. Show me. They walked out to the beverage station. Frankie pulled back the panel under the counter, exposing the syrup lines. A pale green smear ran along one of the connectors. Kellan crouched to look closer. How long's it been like this? Over a month, Frankie said. We clean what we can, but the main line needs replacing. Trish said it wasn't in the budget. Kellan stood. We'll shut it down. I'll send in a crew tonight to replace it. Theo approached slowly. There's another thing. The freezer door doesn't seal, so we get temperature drops and the meat's gotta cook faster or it starts to thaw. Why didn't anyone file a maintenance ticket through corporate? Kellan asked. Trish blocked the system login, said she'd handle it locally. We weren't allowed to submit anything. Kellan's jaw tightened. You'll all get your access restored today, and I'll have the freezer replaced if it's not repairable. Lauren ran a hand through her hair. So, what now? We just go back to work like nothing happened? No, Kellan said. You finish this shift, but not like before. He walked over to the line and grabbed a spare headset. I'll be on register. Theo, take a seat for 10 minutes. Lauren, help Frankie in the back. Theo hesitated. You sure about that? Kellan nodded. I've been on my feet less than half the time you have. You've earned a break. Real one. He watched Theo take a slow seat in a booth near the window. He didn't collapse, just lowered himself carefully like he wasn't used to being allowed rest. The next hour ran smoother. Kellan fumbled a few orders, but Lauren coached him through. Customers noticed the change. One woman even commented that it was the first time someone smiled at her in weeks. By 4, the lunch crowd had thinned. Kellan stepped into the back with Frankie. You've been holding this place together. Why didn't you quit? Frankie shrugged. Didn't feel right leaving the others behind. I've had worse jobs. You shouldn't have to settle for not the worst, Kellan said. You ever think about managing? Frankie looked up. You offering? I'm asking. A long pause. I'd need to do it right, Frankie finally said. No shortcuts. Standards matter. I wouldn't want it any other way. Kellan turned and found Lauren stacking cups. You interested in moving up too? She raised her eyebrows. Me, you've got good instincts. You speak up. That's not nothing. She rested a hand on the counter. I don't want to be someone like her. If that's what moving up means, it doesn't, Kellan said. Not anymore. She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. That evening, Kellan stayed until close. He helped scrub the fryer hood, counted inventory with Theo, and walked the trash to the dumpster. When the last customer left, they locked the doors together. Theo leaned against the front counter. I didn't think I'd still be here tonight. You shouldn't have ever been at risk, Kellan said. I'm sorry it went this long. Theo looked down. I'm not asking for favors. You're not getting any, Kellan said. You're getting what you earned. Theo nodded once. Then I'll be here tomorrow. Kellan watched them go one by one, no celebrations, no speeches. Just tired people heading home with a little less weight on their shoulders. He stood alone in the lobby, lights buzzing overhead. The place still needed work, floors to fix, systems to replace, trust to rebuild, but it was a start. And this time, the right people were in the room. The next morning, Kellan arrived before the sun. The parking lot was still mostly empty, save for a delivery truck idling near the back. Inside, Theo was already wiping down booths, his movements methodical but deliberate, his left leg dragging slightly more than it had the day before. "You don't sleep?" Kellan asked, holding 2 coffees. Theo looked up, surprised. "Didn't know if I still had a job, figured I'd show I still want it." Kellan handed him the cup. "You've already shown it. Every shift you show up early is proof." Theo stared at the lid a moment before nodding once. "Thanks." Kellan made his rounds. The soda system had been replaced overnight as promised. A repair team was due later that day to assess the freezer and the back door's busted latch. Nothing flashy, just the start of actual maintenance. By 10, Lauren arrived, hair pulled into a tight knot, a legal pad tucked under her arm. She walked straight up to Kellan. "You said we could talk ideas. I wrote some down." He motioned her into the back. She laid the pad on the prep table. "Number 1 training, we don't have any. New hires get 2 shifts of shadowing, which means they just copy whatever bad habits the last guy had." Kellan read the list silently. 2, she continued, "we need a real system to submit issues, not just maintenance, scheduling, safety, harassment. Something that doesn't go through a manager who's the problem," he nodded. "We're piloting a direct report app. I'll get this store access first," she blinked. Seriously. Lauren exhaled through her nose. "Okay, 3rd, rotate people across roles. Give them a shot at different tasks. Cashier, prep grill, cross-training means fewer call-out disasters." "I like that." Kellan tapped the pad. "This is solid. You thinking shift lead?" "I'd consider it, but only if feedback goes both ways." "Fair," he said. "You'll get that." She left the pad on the table and returned to the front, just as Frankie walked in, still in his old uniform. He paused when he saw Kellan. "I thought I'd get a call about next steps." "You're already in them," Kellan said. "You're running today's shift." Frankie raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Kellan nodded. "You've got the judgment and the respect." Frankie pulled an apron from the hook. "Then I'll need your help. We're still short one for lunch." Kellan rolled up his sleeves. "I'm good for register." By 11:30, the line had started to grow. Lauren took headset orders, Frankie handled grill and expo, and Kellan rang up guests, making sure to double-check every allergy note and special instruction. At 12:15, a woman approached the counter holding a receipt. "I'm sorry," she said, "but I think my order's missing the no-gluten bun." Frankie overheard and stepped forward. "Hold on, let me get you a fresh one, new gloves, clean surface." The woman looked relieved. "Thank you." "My son's celiac, I appreciate the care." Kellan watched the exchange. Calm, respectful, efficient, the woman leaned over slightly, whispering, "Last time I came in, they told me to just scrape the bread off." "That won't happen again," Kellan said. By mid-afternoon, the flow slowed. Theo sat for a few minutes, sipping water, eyes on the floor. Frankie joined him briefly. "You good?" Theo nodded. "Better than yesterday. Still hurts, always, but I'm not moving like the enemy anymore." Frankie gave a single nod, then returned to the line. Kellan followed him. "You've worked with Theo a while?" 4 years, Frankie said. "He's quiet, but when stuff breaks, he's the one who fixes it. When someone's new, he trains them right, never asked for more pay, never missed a shift." Kellan looked toward the booth. "Then I've got something for him." He waited until the lunch period was fully over before calling everyone to the back room again. This time, there were no surprises, no tension. Just a tired crew with grease on their shirts and sweat on their foreheads. Kellan stood with a folder in hand. "I've made some decisions," he began. "Frankie, you're now the official general manager of this location, starting today. Salary bump, full authority on hiring, and your own login to the maintenance and payroll systems." Frankie blinked once, then nodded. "Thanks. I'll run it clean." I know you will, he turned to Lauren. You're shift lead. You'll work with Frankie to review training procedures and you'll help us test the new reporting tool. She looked down at her shoes, then back up. All right, I'm in. Kellan stepped closer to Theo. You've carried this store longer than anyone. I'm putting you on a fixed 40-hour week. No more overages. You'll help train hires across all departments, trainer pay rate, full benefits. And if you want to step back into leadership later, the door's open. Theo swallowed hard. I didn't think anyone noticed. Kellan handed him a small envelope. There's also a retroactive bonus in there for the last 6 months. Theo didn't open it. He just said, I appreciate it. Kellan looked around the room. None of this fixes what you went through. But it starts the work. Lauren crossed her arms. What about the other stores? I'm heading to one tomorrow. I'll be doing the same thing there, quietly then loudly. Frankie raised a hand. Then I've got a request. Can we get rid of the Employee of the Month wall? It's always the same 2 names. Feels fake. Kellan smiled. Replace it with a team win board. Every week, someone different gets to post something they're proud of. Lauren nodded. That actually sounds useful. Theo looked up. And real? As they returned to their stations, the atmosphere had changed. Not lighter exactly, but steadier. Less guarded, customers were greeted with eye contact. Orders were double-checked. Not because someone was watching, but because it mattered. Before leaving, Kellan stepped outside and called his operations director. I need a new protocol, he said. No manager gets rehired without a peer review from their team. Anonymous. There was a pause. You sure? That's a big shift, I'm sure. And while you're at it, audit every login. If someone's been locked out of the reporting system, I want names on my desk by morning. He hung up and turned back toward the restaurant. Inside, Frankie was coaching a new hire on the difference between the meat and veggie grill zones. Lauren was updating the prep list. Theo was helping a customer navigate the allergen chart. Kellan didn't need to step in. That was the point. He got in his car, looked at the company logo stitched into the passenger seat of his jacket, and made a mental note. Ownership isn't about whose name is on the building. It's about who shows up when it counts. And this time he had.